Hello, baby. Guess what I've got for you?
I jumped up and down with joy. My dad always got me the craziest birthday gifts. And since this was my 5th birthday, I expected something extra special.
Is it a pony, Daddy?
Nope, it's something better. I got you a brand new mommy.
What? I looked at him stunned as a young blonde girl walked up to me. Even as a kid, I could tell she was hot and way out of my dad's league.
A mommy?
Yup. You know how your mom looks so old now, so I got you a new one.
Just then, my mom ran out of the house yelling and screaming. If you let that stupid girlfriend of yours near my kid, I will divorce you! Then she picked me up and ran inside. Hi, I'm Samantha, but my friends call me Sam, and this is my wild story of how I became a playgirl. But before you continue the story, be sure to hit like and subscribe. I was the only girl of my uber-rich dad. He was some hotshot businessman and was always traveling. When I was young, I loved that he traveled so much. He always got me the fanciest gifts imaginable. Once he got me a life-size dollhouse. Another time he got a famous designer to make me a whole line of special one-of-a-kind clothes. But the older I grew, the weirder it all seemed. Every time he came back, Mom and he would have fights. When I saw how much Dad made my mom cry, I started to like him a little less. But after my 5th birthday, it was like my dad had gone totally crazy. Every other day he brought home a new friend, and every time Mom and Dad had wild fights. So I made it my mission to make sure that whenever Dad flirted with a woman around me, I would try to mess it up for him. But then one day he took things way too far, and the worst possible thing happened. Soon after I turned 11, Mom decided to take me out for dinner to celebrate my good grades at school. But as soon as we walked into the cafe, color drained from my mom's face. I looked around to see what she was staring at and was shocked to see Dad with a young blonde woman. I expected a fight to break out, just like always, but she walked me over to his table and handed me to him, saying, "I am sick and tired of your cheating. I'm leaving." Then she turned around and left. I expected to find Mom at home when we got back, but to my shock, she'd taken all her things. And the very next day, Dad's stupid girlfriend moved in, and she instantly said, "Send this thing to the boarding school. I'm too young to be a mom." Next thing I knew, I was being packed up and sent off to a school in Paris. I spent the next year at a boarding school, and Dad almost completely disappeared from my life. I spent whatever time I had trying to look for Mom. I called all her friends and my aunt, but no luck. Eventually, I turned my energy to my studies and found myself doing better at school than I ever had before. Still, there were days when the sadness crept in and I needed an escape. That's when I stumbled onto the basketball court. At first, it was just a distraction, a way to clear my head. But soon, it became so much more. Whether I was upset, overwhelmed, or even happy, I'd find myself running to the court shooting hoops. In short, I discovered my true love, basketball. By the end of my first year, I was genuinely happy. But of course, that didn't last. When the year ended, Dad showed up to pick me. I was shocked to see that he looked like a complete mess.
I've lost all my money, and your new mom took everything from me and vanished.
But Dad, I'm happy here. I don't want to come back.
I don't care. It's not like you can pay the fees here, so you do what I tell you.
Before I knew it, I was back home. Except this wasn't really home. The place Dad was living in was a small, cramped apartment. We had no money to even hire one maid. My life was totally flipped. So cooking, cleaning, doing the dishes, and laundry were all my job. Then he enrolled me into a local school. I was so freaked out. I'd never been to a public school before, and just the idea of going there scared me. And boy, was I right! Public school seemed like a fish market. Everyone was doing whatever they wanted all the time. It felt like a cultural shock to me. As soon as I got onto the school bus, a kid yelled,
"Oh, look at her! Doesn't she look fancy?"
Immediately, someone from the back threw a spitball at me. Oh, gross! Ew! I went up to the kid who had done it and slapped him. "If you ever do that to a lady again, I will kick your butt!" Everyone fell silent and I walked back to an empty seat in the front. The girl sitting there looked up to me shyly and said, "My name is Millie. Will you be my friend?" After that day, Millie and I were never apart. She became my best friend and was the exact opposite of me. Where I was bold and confident, Millie was shy and reserved, so it became my job to look after her and make sure no one bullied her. Years passed and life slowly settled into a rhythm. Basketball became my escape, my constant, and before I knew it, my dedication paid off. I made it onto the school team. I was thrilled. For the first time in what felt like forever, I had something to truly enjoy. But the summer before I was to start high school, I got home from basketball practice one day and found a letter laying outside the apartment door. It was addressed to me. I picked it up, and for a second, my world felt rocked. It was Mom's writing. I'd seen it in countless books all over the house. I ripped it open, praying to find her address, but there wasn't any. The letter said, "Dear Sam, I don't know if you'll ever get this letter, or if you have ever gotten any of the others. When you're older, I will come find you, but for now, I wanted to wish you on your 15th birthday and give you a piece of advice I wish I had had in time. My advice to my lovely girl is never trust men and never be nice to them. They will always use you and then discard you. I met your dad when I was 15. If a guy at that age tried to tell you he loves you, don't trust him. It's better to break hearts than to have yours broken. Love, Mom." Reading the letter, I was so bummed. She knew where I was but hadn't come to even visit me? And what other letters was she talking about? When Dad came home that night, I confronted him. I have to know, did Mom ever send letters before? Suddenly his face darkened and his brow furrowed.
So what if she did? She left you, didn't she?
Where are they?
I threw them away. She left me, and I want to hurt her too.
I was devastated. How could he do this to me? I'd been searching for Mom for years and he'd been hiding her letters? It's no wonder she left you. You're a monster! With that, I ran to my room crying. That night, I decided to follow her advice. I was 15 now, and guys had started asking me out already. I always turned them down because I was so focused on my game, but now I was going to be like them. When class started, I stepped onto campus as a whole new Sam. Sharp, confident, and impossible to ignore. Heads turned, conversations died, and guys stared like they had never seen me before. Immediately, a guy came up to me and Millie and said,
I didn't know the juniors this year were so hot. You want to come to a party with me?
I smiled coyly and agreed. 10 minutes later, a football jock asked me to the same party, and I agreed again. By the end of the day, 5 guys had asked me out to the same party, and I had said yes to all of them. Millie looked at me confused and asked,
What are you doing? They aren't even your type.
It's time to give guys a dose of their own medicine. Over the weekend, when I went to the party, I started dancing with a different guy, and a guy who had asked me out came over to us and pushed him aside.
Hey, back off, she's my date. Hell no, she's mine!
Within minutes, a fight broke out, and I simply grabbed one of the guy's hands and said, I'm tired of this. Walk me out. By the time I was 17, I was one of the most beautiful and popular girls at school. On top of that, I was finally the captain of the girls' basketball team. Naturally, all the guys wanted to date me, but were terrified of me, because I dated more than 20 guys and broken their hearts before they could break mine. But don't worry, I wasn't just breaking guys' hearts at school. I was also making sure they didn't break any. One day, I overheard the captain of the basketball team, Chase, say,
Dude, I took Maria out, but now I really like her best friend. I'm thinking of dating both the girls. I can't pick one. But then I also like that girl, Sam. She drives dudes wild.
His friend laughed and high-fived him and said,
You go, man. Not like those dumb chicks will ever find out.
I was furious and recorded everything. Both the girls they were talking about were in my class, so I waited till it was lunch, and when the guys tried to ask her out, I walked up to them and played the video in front of her. The girl looked like she wanted to strangle him. She grabbed her tray and dumped it all over his head. Then he turned to me and demanded,
Dude, what the hell?
I know guys like you, and there is no way I'm letting you mess around girls' lives like that. After that, Chase literally turned into my enemy. When everything else failed, he started messing with me at the court.
That is not how you pass. You dribble like a girl. Who made you captain?
One day, though, I finally snapped. I so don't want you to tell me how to play basketball. I'm a captain too.
Yeah, but you're the captain of the girls' team. You couldn't beat me in a real game.
Excuse me? Before I knew it, I punched that big douche. He was so furious that he challenged me to a match.
You think you're all that? All right, I challenge your team to a match. If we win, you have to kiss me in front of the whole school and date me for a whole year.
And if I win, you have to dance at my next date in a cheerleader's costume. The day of the basketball match arrived, and the boys' team couldn't stop mocking us.
You'll probably trip in your heels. Hope you brought a mirror to fix your makeup.
I was super pissed, but I held my calm. Let them think we'd lose. The whistle blew and the game began. They played dirty, but we stayed ahead. Within seconds left and the score tied, the ball was in my hands. I dodged their captain, faked a pass, and sank the winning shot as the buzzer blared. The gym went silent. Then from the bleachers, a single pair of hands started clapping.
Way to go, Sam!
I turned and saw Ethan, Millie's older brother, standing and smiling. The other boys muttered and shuffled out, embarrassed, but Ethan kept clapping. Just then, something terrible happened. My heart fluttered at his stupid, perfect grin. Oh no, no, now was not the time. Later, I ran into Ethan in the hallway. I tried to sound casual. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just glad someone shut that jerk up.
He started to walk away, but then he paused.
You know, you're pretty intense. Ever think about channeling that energy into something besides breaking hearts?
Excuse me?
You heard me.
With that, he walked off with that perfect grin on his face. I was livid. I didn't have a comeback. He made my heart flutter, and he was Millie's brother. If I wasn't careful, this would be an utter disaster. Ignoring Ethan was impossible. He started hanging out with Millie and me. Funny, kind, and way too good looking. But deep down, I knew all men were terrible, so flirting with him was easy and fun. But then one day, Millie pulled me aside after practice.
Sam, don't mess with my brother. He's not like the other guys you've played around with. He really likes you. Actually, very much. And if you hurt him, we're done.
After that, I tried ignoring Ethan, but then he asked me out to a concert. I said yes, but all day I kept thinking of the different ways to end things with Ethan, so I ghosted him. The next day, he walked past me without a word, and the look on his face made my stomach twist. Millie wasn't as quiet, though.
What is wrong with you? He waited for you for hours, Sam. He bought tickets to your favorite band. He even...
You wanted me not to hurt him, so I
hurt him twice as much? He's my brother. I warned you.
Then Millie just turned around and walked away. And for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. As if things weren't bad enough, a few days later, Dad dropped a bombshell over breakfast.
We're having dinner with the Wiltons tonight.
Who?
You know, my old business partner. His son's a fine young man, and I think you'll like him.
That evening, I reluctantly put on a dress and joined Dad for dinner at the Wiltons' mansion. And when I met his son Chase, I kid you not, my jaw dropped. He was the basketball captain.
Can I get you a drink, Captain Heartbreaker?
Got any poison? At dinner, his parents kept hinting about how well-connected their family was and how Chase would be the perfect match for someone like me. He grinned and started making kissy faces at me. Ugh, it was disgusting. The last straw came when he whispered into my ear,
"You're mine now, babe."
You know what? I think I'd rather marry a rock. It's got more personality than you. Then I grabbed the dessert they just served and threw it all over his big, fat, egoistic head and ran out. The next day in school, Chase cornered me by the lockers, his signature smug grin firmly in place.
You know, you really missed out last night.
Missed out on what? Listening to your dad list all the ways I could make your life better?
No, you missed out on me. Let's be real, Sam. You're cute, but you're not exactly swimming in options. My parents are right. This could work.
Work? You mean like a business deal? Sorry, but I'm not for sale.
Are you sure about that? Because everyone has a price.
Then that jerk tried to kiss me. Before I knew it, I landed a nice, hard punch on his face. But as I turned around to leave, his teammates started circling me and Chase stood up laughing like a loony.
Come on, don't be like that.
Before I could respond, another voice cut through.
Leave her alone.
I turned and saw Ethan stepping out of the shadows, his face hard and cold.
Bro, we're just talking. No, you're not. You're harassing her. Now get lost.
For a moment, it looked like the guy was going to argue, but Ethan stepped forward, and whatever Chase saw in Ethan's eyes made him think twice. He walked away. I turned to Ethan, smiling. I could have handled it.
Sure you could have.
I stared at him, waiting for some sign of the Ethan I knew, the one who used to joke with me and make me feel like I wasn't completely terrible, but he just walked away like I was some stranger. The next day at school, Ethan and Millie continued to avoid me. It hurt me more than I expected. I tried to focus on practice, but my mind kept drifting back to Ethan. His words, his coldness, the way he hadn't even looked at me after the fight. Was this what I deserved? After everything I'd done, all the people I'd hurt, maybe it was. A few days after the Chase incident, I came home to find my dad pacing the living room. He looked more agitated than usual, his phone glued to his ear. As soon as he saw me, he was back on my case, telling me I had to marry Chase. That is not happening, Dad.
Oh, yes, it will. You have to. After everything I've done for you.
Furious, I decided it was so not worth it to argue with him, so I turned and walked right back out. But just as I stepped out, I saw something that shook me to my core. Mom? She stood there, looking older but radiant, her warm eyes fixed on me. For a moment, I couldn't speak.
Hi, sweetheart. How have you been?
After a tearful reunion, we ended up at a small cafe nearby. Over steaming mugs of coffee, Mom told me everything. Dad, his cheating, his lying, everything I remembered and more. Then she told me something insane. I'm getting married again. She told me she had finally found someone she could love and trust. But you told me never to trust men.
I know, I was hurt, but I was so wrong. Not all men are like your father. Besides, I thought showing up would remind him what he lost. He deserves that much, don't you think?
What? Even now, Mom hasn't come to see me. She was just here to show off to Dad, to make him jealous? Ugh, her words hit me like a freight train. For years, I searched for her, clung to her advice like a shield, pushing people away from my life. But now I realized how wrong I'd been all along. Maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to live this way anymore. That night, I sat in my room staring at my phone. I thought about Ethan, his kindness, his patience, the way he'd saved me even after I hurt him. And I thought about Millie, the best friend I'd taken for granted. Meanwhile, my parents were too busy with their own egos, using me as a part of their endless games, never once stopping to ask how I felt. It was time to fix things. The next day, I found Millie at her locker. Hey, can we talk?
What's there to talk about, Sam? You hurt Ethan, you hurt me, and now you're sorry? It's not that simple.
I know. I'm done making excuses. I messed up and I'm sorry. I was scared, Millie. Scared of trusting people, scared of getting hurt. But that's not an excuse for how I treated you or Ethan. Millie stared at me for a long moment, then sighed again, this time softer. I love you, Millie, and I can never lose you.
Oh, you idiot.
Then she pulled me into a hug. I love you too. Later, once I had Millie's blessings, I found Ethan on the basketball court shooting hoops by himself. He didn't even look at me.
Go away, Sam.
I will. I'm here just to say sorry. For everything. For standing you up. For pushing you away. For being an idiot. You're the first person who's ever made me want to be better. And I don't want to lose you. So I am so sorry for everything. Ethan looked at me for what felt like an eternity. Then finally, he smiled.
You really are dramatic. You know that?
It's part of my charm. Then, like a fairy tale, Ethan walked up to me and finally kissed me. A few months later, I got a part-time gig and rented my very own place. I was thrilled. Because for the first time in forever, I wasn't running or hiding or doing what someone else wanted me to do. I was finally living, and I had Millie and Ethan by my side. Oh, and the next big game we had, guess who led the cheerleaders? Yep, it was Chase in a cheerleader's outfit.